god. The actual state of Disney right now and where they're going is pissing me off. Marvel and Disney don't know how much longer they can keep the shared rights to Spider-Man if Far From Home doesn't reach 1 billion. Aladdin was a soulless pile of auto-tuned garbage with bad CG. People are angry that The Little Mermaid is black now, and now they're complaining that Mulan won't be a musical or have Mushu the dragon.
Oh boy.
But out of all the things that Disney has beaten like a dead horse in just the past few years, The Lion King 2019 is where I have to draw the goddamn line. Advertisement. If there's one thing that Disney is disturbingly good at, it's taking aim and locking onto their target audience. Now, when I say target audience, you automatically assume children. But that's actually not who I'm referring to. Disney knows that young adults in their late 20s to mid 30s who grew up with these movies on videocassette are the biggest buyers. There isn't anything wrong with liking Disney films as an adult. They're heartwarming, they're beautifully animated, and they have really profound themes and lessons throughout.
A life without Meg, even an immortal life, would be empty.
I'm bad, and that's good. I will never be good, and that's not bad. There's no one I'd rather be than me.
Take 1991's Beauty and the Beast, for instance. This movie was so good, it was the first ever animated movie to receive an Oscar nomination for Best Picture. This movie pretty much set the bar for animated movies going forward, and then they made a remake of the movie in 2017 and it sucked! The Lion King was my all-time favorite Disney movie as a kid, and if the advertisement for the newer movie has succeeded in one thing, it's reminded me that I have, in fact, seen this movie before. Many times. I am positive that you could edit together all of the promotional footage Disney has released for this movie alone, and you'd basically have the movie. Execution. There isn't a single thing that 2019 Lion King does that the original hasn't already done better. I've always been a firm believer of the philosophy, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But none of the decisions made for this movie fixes anything. It's the same, just not as well paced. It's an animated movie that isn't taking advantage of the fact that it's an animated movie. One of my favorite scenes from the original movie was when Simba was singing "I Just Can't Wait to Be King" and all the colors in the environment just pop.
I'm gonna be a mighty king, so enemies beware.
Everything looks more vibrant and alive, and all the other animals who join in on the song stack into a giant pile. They don't do that in this movie. The hyper-realism of the animals in 2019 Lion King is really restricting to how they express emotion or even move. It just dips right into the uncanny valley when they try to seem less like hyper-realistic animals, and it just looks kind of wrong. The characters from the original movie were so much more expressive and personified, and they looked a lot less like stock photos from Google Images. In this movie, Scar is an incel. His character is that he's jealous of his Chad older brother getting the girl instead of him, and spends most of his newfound sovereignty insisting that Sarabi is his new queen, like some kind of neckbeard. Scar went from being a spiteful, cunning villain trying to claim his birthright to being kind of wimpy and entitled. I feel like while his character wasn't butchered quite as badly as Jafar was in Aladdin, it just still felt like there was that air of villainy missing. He had this smug grin on his face all throughout the original movie, like he was always planning something sinister and just 2 steps ahead of everybody else. But you can't really express that emotion now that he's just a regular lion. Mufasa's death in this movie is so embarrassing, it's laughable. Instead of dramatically letting Mufasa plummet to his death, Scar, bops him on the head twice, the way a cat does when it gets pissed off. And then he falls. They used the same shitty slow-mo effect from Spider-Man 3 and even had me laughing as hard as this scene. When Simba finds his now dead father, there is no emotion on his face at all. His body language didn't even change all that much. In the original movie, we see Simba crying and tearing up over his father's death. But you can't really express that emotion now that he's just a regular lion. The hyenas had no character. Now, here's a quick question. What are hyenas typically known for in media? Laughing. A big part of the hyenas' personalities in the first movie revolved around them laughing like complete idiots, and it worked.
It's not funny, Ed. Hey, shut up! And man, are they ugly!
But in this movie, the only purpose they served was nameless henchmen and nothing more. Why, oh why, would they cast Eric Andre to play the stupid hyena and not let him go all out with that? They could have just taken audio clips of him screaming from the Eric Andre show and they'd be all set. But they can't have personalities now because they're just regular hyenas. The autotune in this movie is kind of bad.
Free to run around all day.
Well, that's definitely out.
Free to do it all my way.
It's one thing to use corrective autotune for actors who aren't very strong singers, but Donald Glover is a distinguished musician with a good singing voice. Also, I'm pretty sure Donald Glover got to voice Simba purely because he said Mufasa once in his song 3005.
Go why is you lying? Or why you Mufasa?
He said it! He said it!
All throughout the movie, there's corrective autotune where it just isn't necessary because these actors do know how to sing. So adding an extra layer of corrective autotune just coats their voices and it makes their audio almost as uncanny as the visuals. Oh, I forgot to mention, Seth Rogen as Pumbaa is the very best thing about this movie.
I missed him! I'm gonna get one of those vultures one day!
He's just playing himself as a farting pig. That's all I need. It's beautiful. But Timon and Pumbaa don't dress and drag in this one. Disney, you fucking cowards. If there isn't any cross-dressing in the new Mulan, there will be hell to pay. Beyonce is in this movie. There are plenty of voice actresses who would give up every worldly possession they own and then their souls to be Nala in this movie. Beyonce is in this movie because she is wildly famous. I mean, come on, it's Beyonce.
Try me, Beyonce. Come on. You've heard of her. She's a huge star, right?
But let's not forget about the most iconic scene from the entire movie.
Father?
You have forgotten who you are, and so forgotten me. Look inside yourself, Simba. You are more than what you have become. Remember who you are.
Remember who you are. This incredible scene defines the movie and lives in the heart of every Disney fan alive. And I'll admit, it's great to hear James Earl Jones' voice again. But how does 2019 treat this scene? Mufasa is just a cloud. A cloud! For half of a split second during a tiny spark of lightning, you can kinda make out a lion's face, but if you blink, you'll miss it. So they had the technology to make hyper-realistic animals in a detailed 3D environment, but they couldn't create a lion shape in a cloud? I mean, well, it makes sense, really. If you're gonna have boring, normal-looking animals in this movie, you may as well have a boring, normal-looking cumulonimbus cloud! All of the love and critical acclaim that this movie's receiving is owed entirely to its predecessor. Every iconic moment and character that made The Lion King a success in the first place all happened well over 20 years ago, and right now, 2019 is riding off of that success. Disney is seeing that audiences are beginning to settle for less, so naturally they're going to produce objectively lesser products if people are still buying.
Audiences are retarded!
It took years and years to make animated movies to the level of Beauty and the Beast or The Lion King. With live-action remakes, it doesn't take as long to produce and is much less costly. I honestly don't feel like live-action and hyper-realism are the right mediums to tell these stories with, if they keep adding more problems they can barely work around, like visuals, audio, and clouds. To conclude, I really didn't like this movie. It pales in comparison to the original, and it doesn't really have a soul. The tools to make something much better are right there. Hell, Jon Favreau even showed us that before with Jungle Book. But that's just not what happened with The Lion King, and I can't say I'm even all that surprised. Watching the remakes out of name brand loyalty and nostalgia's sake just gives Disney what they want, and as a whole it hurts the artistic side of the film industry. See, Disney remakes tend to repeat a certain pattern. Build up the hype like crazy, become relevant for like 3 weeks to maybe a month once they're out, end up on Netflix much later within the same year, and then never really talked about again. I know that Christopher Robin came out like a year ago, and even then, no one was really talking about it. I don't know a single human being who even gave a shit about Dumbo. The fact that these remakes are becoming more and more vapid and forgettable with each release is highly problematic. Disney at its core is meant to be about long-lasting memories with this feeling of magic and childlike wonder, all while setting the bar in the making. Now we're just congratulating nostalgia bait in virtue of it being nostalgia bait, and that's never a reason to give a movie a pass. If this is the direction that Disney's going to be taking, then outside of the MCU, I really don't think I can be all that invested anymore.
People, it's up to you. If the movie stinks, just don't go.